Hey folks, welcome back to another episode of Dragons and Dice. And with me today is my wife, Emmy.
Hi.
And we're going to be going over how to use your characters' backstories to incorporate those into quests that you can use in your home D&D game. Welcome to Dragons and Dice. Okay, one of the things I love to use in my D&D home games is to take the characters' backstories that they give me at the start of the campaign, and I like to build those into quests. And the game that I'm running right now is a big campaign. We're started at level 1, and our goal is to play a 1 to 20 campaign all the way through, and we have 8 players. And we also decided we would do EXP this time, so it takes a lot. And by a lot, I mean 2,840,000 for the group to reach level 20 from the start. And that's a lot of dead things. And it'll probably take like 2 years to finish this campaign. And that's a lot of material to build if you're a DM and having to make it all up from scratch. And so I have some workarounds to keep people invested in the story and keep that story moving. And most importantly, it's to keep those PCs leveling up. And so here's the first trick that I like to do, and that's to make quests out of all the backstories that I get. And like I said, we have 8 characters. That gives me a lot of material to work with. The way I go about this is that whatever I get in backstories, even if it's just I woke up one day and decided to leave the farm and seek my fortunes, I just take whatever that character gives me a backstory and I'll make a quest out of it. So we'll call this guy Farmer Paul, and he decided leave the farm, seek his fortunes. What I'm going to do is at some point during the game, when they're traveling from one town to another, there'll be a small little farming area, and that'll be where Paul was from. And then you can have a nice social encounter where he meets his family, you figure out why they left. Maybe goblins raided his farm, there's nothing left there, and you can have that be part of your quest to go avenge, his lost loved ones. But the point is that character made a backstory, and you use that material to add in a quest and fill out your campaigns.
I had no idea you were going to do this when you asked me for my character's backstory.
Yeah, I did it with everybody at the whole table, and I didn't tell anyone I was doing this. It's just something I thought would be a good way of filling out the campaign.
Oh, okay. I thought maybe I was left out.
No, yours is still coming up. We'll actually go over a little bit of it later.
No, I didn't mean my backstory. I meant, you didn't tell everybody that you were going to put their stories into the campaign.
No, I didn't. It's all been kind of like a surprise as we go. But the gig's up now because we've done a couple of them and everyone knows.
Yeah, we know what's up now.
Yeah, so that's what I like to do. It's good material for...
It's been really fun. I like it.
One of the reasons I like to do this so much is that it lets the players know that the DM's paying attention to the effort they're putting into their role play and creating a well fleshed out character, and it seems to make the game seem a little more genuine because you grew up in this world that you're playing in. You're gonna have a history there, and this is a way of factoring that into the actual campaign.
Yeah.
Another thing I like about this is these give you some instances where you can let one player shine a little more than the other because it's their backstory and they get to kind of be the star of it. And it gives you a good option of fleshing out those characters. Maybe not everyone knows about what's going on with each person's backstory at the table. Sometimes the PCs don't talk a lot.
It's a lot to keep up with.
Yeah, it is. There's big, huge campaign. You got tons of NPCs to keep up with, all your stats and stuff. And then keeping up with everybody else's, history is a lot. But it lets that person kind of shine as the star for that session or that encounter. And it's a good way of giving out loot to people. And that's one of the other things I like to do with this.
We love loot.
Who don't? So, as you play through Farmer Paul, for example's backstory here, maybe he had a family heirloom that got left behind when he left. Or maybe, his dad had a special sword that he didn't bequeath to him, but now he's gone and now he can come back and claim his inheritance. It's a good way to do a little loot drop that kind of goes directly to one person. And I think that's always nice because it keeps the party from having to bicker and argue over who gets what. Another nice thing you can do with this, say you just have a social encounter and, Farmer Paul's reconciled with his family, however you want to work it out, you can give out social experience. And this is something I like to do in big campaigns because it takes a lot of experience, as we went over, to get people leveled up. And with 8 players at the table, you're splitting that piece of the pie 8 ways. You can be... Whenever you finish a background quest, you can give out experience for that. And just out of combat, just be like, every player here now gets 1,500 experience or whatever is relative to the level that you're at. And this is a nice way of incorporating that these backstories, when the players decide to go and play through them, kind of have rewards incorporated with them.
Luring us into it.
So that's all DMs do. We just dangle the carrot.
And then we kick the carrot away.
And then I whack you with a stick.
Go down a mine shaft and die.
And that's D&D.
In a shell.
If I have big backstories to work with, I'll build whole sessions or multiple sessions around them. The home game that I'm in right now, we have a paladin that was betrayed by the people that trained him. And so for his background story, I built a training area where the younger paladins went to train when they were, up-and-comers. And I added in a villain that was part of that group that betrayed him. Had that villain be working for the main big bad evil girl of our campaign. And then when the party got close to where I wanted to have this event take place, I had the town leader send them there to investigate this paladin training ground because no new paladins had been coming out of it. And so it gave them a little side quest. And this was a really fun event. The paladin in our group he's the strong and silent type, so he doesn't talk a whole lot, especially not about his history. And he hadn't disclosed much of his backstory to the group. So as they were traveling there, it was the perfect time for him to kind of open up to the party. And he told everyone what had happened to him while they were on the way there. And then everybody's like, dang, bro, that's dark and awful. And it was really good inter-party role play.
It kind of sucks that I missed that night because I didn't know anything about his backstory, and I still don't.
Yeah, he didn't really share much of it. He gave it to me, and I don't think he told anyone else at the table what it was. So if you're interested, next time we play, I have it written down in there in my little notebook.
Yeah, I feel like I need to be filled in.
Yep, we will do that next time we play. So like I said earlier, when I do these backstory quests, I like to make that person the star of the show. And I think this is something that all DMs should be doing, and that's giving each person time to shine and not having to compete with the group for the spotlight. Some players are just quieter than others and need to be given space so that their voice can be heard. The way we played this out was I had our players enter the training ground, and the big bad guy was there that had helped train with him. They hate each other, which makes for fun DM and player interactions as long as you keep it friendly and don't get hit too hard on the nose. They challenged each other to a duel. And in the meantime, I had groups of soldiers on the ramparts of the training ground area, and they were firing ballistas at the other party members with the warning that any interference with the duel would result in basically all the ballistas being turned on that person that interfered and then, firing on them. So it was a fun double battle. We rolled initiative for the two paladins that were fighting and then the whole party versus the rest of the group. And this brings me to the next trip for keeping a big group leveling up. And I should tell you all that I worked this out with the paladin behind the scenes so that only me and him knew that this was about to happen. He was wanting to multi-class, and so we decided we were going to do a cinematic ending to it. And he got beat down at the end, which he actually had because I hit him pretty hard. And so we rolled out the dice and played it out all legit. But then at the end of the fight, he made a weapon grab, and then he wanted to go sorcerer, so he channeled sorcery powers, and he blew the guy up. And the table was oh man, because they had no clue. No one knew what was happening or how he had just all of a sudden can do, sorcerer magic. And the whole table was flabbergasted. And then that paladin now is multi-classed into sorcerer. And we had this happen at level 6. So what I did to speed up the level ups for the big group is we went ahead and just made him level 7 when this happened. And that was at the start of level 6. So it basically took him out of the EXP that had to be split between the group. And now instead of splitting it 8 ways, you only have to split it 7. And it lets him kind of shine for a bit because now he's just a little bit ahead of the party, but not for a long time. But it lets that person kind of be the star of the show and a little overpowered for a little bit. And if you do this with each of your characters, it lets each of them kind of be oh, I'm now the strongest for just a bit. And then the party comes back to even. When they all level up again, everyone's back on the same level, and he starts gaining EXP.
So if you want to multi-class, you just say multi-class, kind of like declaring bankruptcy.
Yeah, just I now declare
multi-class.
Okay. Now, just when you level up, you can take a level in any class you want as long as you have. Each class has prerequisite stats that you have to meet to be able to multi-class into it.
Where are those at?
They're in the player's handbook. And
what if you don't have that?
You can talk to your DM about it, and they'll tell you.
Keep secrets from me.
I know. You're I hate that DM guy.
Such a jerk.
Such a jerk. Secrets,
Yeah. Are no fun.
Are no fun. but your multi-class won't hurt someone.
Well, it better. That's the point.
The next thing I like to do with Backstory Quest is this is a great time for a loot drop. And when that player finishes his or her story arc, and it's a great time to give them some upgrades. And I really like doing this for a couple of reasons. First off, it makes the giving out of loot seem so much less forced. I mean, you fought a troll and, oh wow, it's layer there, and it had, oh, yada yada, whatever piece of loot that just magically fits exactly what the party needed. And I know a lot of people do random loot rolls. That seems a little problematic for me because you either end up with nothing the party can use or way overpowered stuff. So I only do custom loot drops. And having your loot linked to a backstory lets you customize it exactly for that person because it's part of their history and part of the reason they're in the game. And I think that fits into your campaign much more seamlessly than random loot drops do, or, forced treasure chest. And not that you can't have those, but this is a good time to add in custom items for each individual PC in your game.
We appreciate that.
Yeah, it seems like it goes over well at the table. We have a warlock at our current table, and she's royalty. She took the nobility background, and she made out a backstory of her mother has passed away, and her father is out to get her, and that's why she has fled and how she became an adventurer. I asked her how she wanted this to be resolved, or if she wanted to be hunted by him during the campaign, and she said I could take him out if I wanted to, and so being the DM, I did. And I would like to make a little DM note here. I try not to take liberties with my PC's backstories. Those are stuff they've made up, but I do like to work it out with them, like behind the scenes through, text messages, phone calls, whatever. And that way that you're both on the same page and you're not, stepping on the toes of the characters and the way they want their characters to go.
That's cool. So you let us tell our stories as opposed to telling them for us.
Yeah, that's what I really want to have happen at the table is like I just kind of arbitrate it and make cool stuff happen, but the story is, kind of I build the story and you all are the ones that tell it.
Right.
So I think that's a big part of D&D and what makes it fun. So with this warlock, in her backstory, like I said, her dad was hunting her, but what we had happen was that the big bad evil girl at our campaign, she had another henchman that had took him out and they were coming for her, and we had a neat scene where she was able to like plant a ring that would disable this guy. He was a big hobgoblin general. That's easy to say. So she was able to plant a ring on this guy and it incapacitated him, but during the lead up to this, the party had been captured, and he threw down her dad's hand that he cut off, and her mom's staff. Well, her dad's hand had a signet ring on it, and the staff was her mom's, and I had those be the two items that she was getting dropped here. Rod of the Pack Keeper for the staff, and it was a ring of spell storage that was the signet ring, and they both had some little homebrew flair added to them, but it was a really neat way of her getting two items that are really, spot on for a warlock that worked right in with the storyline.
Yeah, it did. That was fun.
Yeah, I liked it. I thought it was really neat having it be a non-combat encounter too, because instead of just hey, we're going to go beat this guy up, you had to be sneaky and plant the ring on him, and it incapacitated him, and then...
Yeah, I liked it.
Another thing I'm doing with this character's background story is I'm using this as a gateway to get the party into the Underdark, because she's a drow, and her family was nobility there, and so right by where... this all happened, there's going to be an entrance into the Underdark that lets the party go down there and check out what happened with her family and how this all came about. The other thing I'm excited for about doing these kind of background story quests is it's a nice natural break in the campaign. If you have a player for some reason that's needing to drop from the party, like they're moving or have other obligations that take precedence, that real life stuff that gets in the way of all our D&D games. This is a great way to send them off to the sunset without having to be sadly, Farmer Paul missed his acrobatics check and fell into, a hole never to be seen again. That seems kind of construed. But if you do this, that person can be sent off with their last D&D session with you being hey, we got to do, my background story, and they get to be the star of it. And the other thing that I do with this is that playing a big campaign from 1 to 20, sometimes characters may get bored with what, class and character they've made. This is a nice natural break for them too if they want to transition into something new. So, like with this warlock, once she finds her family's land, if she decides she'd like to play a different class, she now has the option to go there and rebuild her, family estates and roll something new. And we'll have that start off at the same level that she was at, and we'll figure out a way that that person can meet the party. Same thing with the paladin. Once he cleared out the corrupt paladin temple, if he wanted to change classes, he could quit adventuring and take up training paladins. I think it's a nice way to give players options after you've played a little while to see if they're happy with their choices, and that way you don't get stuck in one character for a whole campaign if you're not happy with it. And it keeps players invested and happy to be at the table. Okay, a couple more ideas for how to use backstories. I have a Pact of the Blade Warlock at the table, and we've worked out that his patron will be the actual Raven Queen talking to him through his sword. And we've had him have a couple visions and commune with her and talk with her, and so he knows kind of what's up. And this is one of those things that you probably will have to let the whole party know ahead of time or spend a session doing it. But what this backstory is going to do is it's going to involve a flashback. And so at some point, once the characters get down into the Shadowfell and meet the Raven Queen, they'll try to rescue his brother who's been lost there. And once they do, she's going to give them a memory. And when they look at the memory, we're going to play it like a flashback because it's part of the lore of the history of the campaign that's going on. But the fun part about doing this is it's going to fulfill his backstory and the part that he has done about missing his brother and how he became a Pact of the Blade Warlock and all those things. But we're also going to do a poof flashback, and everyone's going to get to roll new characters. And then for 3 or 4 sessions, they will play out the memories. And so it'll be like a history of the campaign. And this is a nice transition of using one of your characters' backstories to get them to meet somebody that can kind of take the campaign in a new area and give out a bunch of lore that you need. But it's also a fun way to get to try out some new stuff.
That's cool. So who is this Raven Queen person? I'm not familiar.
Okay, she runs a good chunk of the Shadowfell. And so her thing is she's kind of like chaotic neutral, and she's kind of tends toward evil chaotic neutral, I guess. But, she collects memories of sorrows and of big happenings. Like the bigger the person, if it was a god that died, she would want the memories of what caused that and those sort of things. So she's a good person to give lore drops to your party if you can find a way to negotiate with her, because she will trade, but she's kind of it's kind of like a monkey's paw type situation. She's going to be tricksy with it. It's not going to be in your favor.
So is the Shadowfell the same as the Underdark?
No, it's a little bit darker. So the Shadowfell is darker than the Underdark. That makes a lot of sense, but hey, that's how it goes. So the Underdark is like a inverse of the material plane, where the Shadowfell would be an inverse of the Feywild.
What's the Feywild?
The Feywild is where high elves live and basically fairyland.
Okay, so it's like dark elf land.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, we'll just say that.
Could just say that. Yeah, there's a bunch of actual dark elves that live in the Shadowfell. So
I see. And
so the way I've got this structured is they'll play these new characters for 3 to 6 sessions, however long it takes to complete the quest that we'll have in the flashback. And then when they come back, their other characters will have leveled up. And the other thing I'm super stoked about is we're going to start using this as our transition into the new Dungeons & Dragons material. And so when we make the new characters, they'll be playing the new 2024 material. So we'll start adding in weapons masteries and new spells and all that. And that'll be a good transition for them to get to try out. And then when we come back, if everyone likes it, it'll be a nice little test run to see if we want to start adding that into our home game. Make another little DM note here. I think the Raven Queen is great for this. She's like a no-brainer for this kind of antic if you want to add it in at the table, since she's all about knowing the big picture and collects memories. But if you don't have the Raven Queen in your campaign, this might be a little bit harder to pull off, but you might have the party meet a storm giant and they can play out a prophecy, or they ate a weird mushroom from the Underdark and fell into a trance, or in the Feywild, wherever you have your party at, and then played out that dream sequence, and then they woke up, and then they can go back to their normal characters. That's one of the joys of being a DM and how flexible D&D is. You can kind of figure out a way to fit anything in if you need to. So the last thing I like to do for backstories, and these will all kind of be dependent on what your party gives you and whether or not you can work stuff out like this, but Emmy, do you want to tell us about your backstory as a pirate?
Well, I didn't go super into depth with my backstory. It was more of just like a small mental paragraph, but and I made up this part like just a few weeks ago, but I wanted to have a tattoo gun so we could have magical tattoos, and your idea was that I found it on my wrecked pirate ship. So we haven't done that yet, but I'm excited.
Yeah, it's coming up real soon, and I think this is cool because I've had multiple people at the table who want magical tattoos, and I know you mentioned that you like tattoos and were interested in, like, can I do this? And I was like, yeah, there's tattoos in D&D.
Yeah, well, pirates, and tattoos go together.
Yeah.
Great, so.
Like peanut butter and ladies.
Yep.
And so what we're going to have happen is that they're going to find your crashed ship from where that's how you kind of met the party. Is she joined the campaign after they were already at like level 4, and since she took the background thing, we had her be kind of marooned on the starting island, and that's how you met the party. And so the way this is going to work for your backstory is you're going to find your old ship crashed on a different part of the coast,
and then find all my wares.
Well, yeah, that's kind of what I had it planned to work out, was that you'd be there, and then there'll be, it won't just be given to you. It's D&D. You'll have it's been taken over by were sharks, or,
sure.
There's a Leviathan has eaten your ship, and you've got to go in the belly of the beast. So, but I think it's a cool way, like, since it's something you were interested in as a backstory, something that the other party members were interested in as a part of their loot, is that once you find this, now you'll be able to do tattoos for the party.
Awesome.
Yeah, and then, we'll work out how each of those work. Like, you'll probably have to find, like, magic inks and, patterns or something like that. It'll be part like a crafting system. To
level up my art.
Exactly. And so that's just off of your little backstory. And like you said, it wasn't a whole lot, but you were, like, a pirate, and we knew you'd gotten, like, shipwrecked to get to the island. So it's a nice way of, like, you find your old ship, and then, get to resolve a little bit of your
my stuff and things.
Get your stuff and things.
Can't wait.
So this is a good example of how a little backstory quest can give out other quests and give the party more things to look forward to. And this would probably be my closing statement for this episode, is that do things that keep your party involved, and do at least one of these type of quests early in the campaign. The first one I gave out, I think the party was like level 3. But in true party fashion, I don't think they completed it until they were like level 7, which is a lot of sessions. And how it goes as DM. You'll be like, here, you need to go here. And then you just get crickets, and you're like, okay. And then it's in your best interest, and they never believe you. But if you give out one early, and then it gives that player a nice little boost, and then the other players get to see that as the DM, that you appreciate the effort they've put into their characters, and that you're willing to work with them on making that an individual session for each of the group, everyone will be excited when it's time for their backstory to be the next quest that's coming up. And as a DM, I think these are really fun to build because you get to work out the details with one of your PCs kind of one-on-one. And I love that working out part of it, and it's just fun. And it's always a nice surprise for the players at the table when they don't know what's going to happen, but you and the person who are doing their story quest do. Now it's time for the almost forgotten homebrew item of the week. This week's homebrewed item is the Monkey Paw Talisman, and this is a talisman worn around the neck. It is a cursed item, and once it's put on, you can't take it off unless you use the remove curse spell, or, take it to a cleric somewhere. They can probably do it for you. But what this talisman does is it points at all hidden doors and secret traps, and basically anything that's hidden. But the catch is, every time it's used, you roll a d4, and on a 1, the Monkey's Paw Talisman tries to strangle the person, and they immediately take 2d8 in damage, and then they have to act out, because where their windpipe has been closed, they're not allowed to speak what's happening to them until the party can help them remove it. And so it takes a DC 30 strength check, but 2 people get to do it. So you can go and help a buddy, and each time you fail the check, they also take the damage again. It's a fun little cursed item to add to your game. I bet your players will love it, and they'll hate it. Well, folks, that's it for this episode of Dragons and Dice. Thanks for listening, and if you like what we're doing here, please like, subscribe, or leave a review. It really helps with exposure of a new show. So until next time, may your D20s roll high, and may your DMs be kind.